Hello and welcome to Experiment 1, Recrystallisation. We are Video Group 18, group members Kirk Scholes, Manisha Shanmugam, Samantha Sapola, and myself, Mia Crump. So, what is this experiment about? Recrystallization is purifying a solid compound by dissolving in a solvent and removing impurities through filtration techniques. Selecting the most appropriate solvent is essential, and you also want to use the minimum amount of solvent required to maximize the concentration of the compound you are purifying. The solvent used in this recrystallization is water. Also, just some application of recrystallization in the real world. It is mostly utilized in the pharmaceutical industry, such as purifying certain drugs for medical application. To begin with, solvation. Solvation is the process of adding your solute to your solvent and creating your solution. So, 100 milliliters of water was added to a 250 milliliter beaker and brought to the boil. 10 milliliters of deionized or distilled water and 1 boiling chip were added to a 250 milliliter conical flask and also brought to the boil. 1 gram of impure benzoic acid was measured and added to the conical flask, with the exact mass of the benzoic acid being recorded. Small amounts of boiling water were added to the solution to aid in dissolution. The conical flask was swirled until the mixture completely dissolved. The solution obtained was coloured. Leading into hot filtration from solvation. With caution, the benzoic acid solution was removed from the heat. 1 equal teaspoon of decolorizing charcoal was added to the solution. Now, the idea behind the addition of the decolorizing charcoal is to remove any colored soluble impurities. The solution was then placed back on the heat and brought to the boil. A piece of fluted filter paper was prepared and placed in a funnel, and the funnel placed into a second 250 ml conical flask. The filter paper was fluted by folding your round piece of filter paper in half, then in half again, then folded in the style of accordion, which is by small triangles throughout to the point, then it was unfolded. This maximizes surface area of the filter paper and increases the filtration rate. The fluted filter paper was dampened, and the glassware arrangement, which included the filter paper in the funnel and the conical flask, were placed back on the heat source. No more than 1 to 2 milliliters of water was on the bottom of the flask at any time. Small amounts of the hot benzoic acid solution were poured through the funnel into the conical flask. Once all the benzoic acid solution was filtered, the flask was removed from the heat source and set aside to cool slowly. Once it reached room temperature, the flask was placed in an ice bath. Filtering the solution while it's as hot as possible helps to remove insoluble impurities. It is essential the solution is allowed to cool slowly, as this increases the likelihood that impurities will be excluded from the crystal lattice as they are in equilibrium with the molecules in solution. For the final process, in order for recrystallization to be complete, the flask and its contents must cool to approximately 4 degrees Celsius. After recrystallization was complete, pre-weighed filter paper and a Buchner funnel were used to filter the benzoic acid crystals. Vacuum filtration was utilized. The crystals were then placed onto the watch glass and allowed to dry at room temperature. Once the crystals were completely dry, their mass was recorded. There it is, recrystallization. Thank you for listening.